Hello everybody, this is Yakov Fein with Varata Systems. In today's video I'll show you a somewhat advanced technique how to implement intercomponent communication with Angular using common injectable service. In the previous video I explained how to use intercomponent communication using a common parent as a mediator. This time we'll use a common injectable service. Couple of words about myself. I work for a company called Varata Systems, and in there I do everything related to Angular. I do consulting, I do training, and if you want to see our next public training schedule, just check out my blog yakovfein.com or send us an email if you want us to run training in your company. So let's start. We need to create an intercomponent communication in Angular in a loosely coupled fashion, which means that a component A shouldn't know about component B, but they should be able to communicate or send data back and forth. How to do that? So today we'll look at the second version of implementing the Mediator design pattern, and in particular we'll be using an injectable service to be a mediator. Look at this diagram. Imagine that this is not just a bunch of different shapes, but it's your screen, it's your UI. You have some root component, number 1. You have maybe some container, number 2, which in turn has its own child components, 4 and 5. You may have an independent component, 6, another container, 3, with its children, 7 and 8. So imagine that you need a component number 5 to send some data to component number 6 and 8. Component number 5 has no idea that number 6 or 8 even exist, but it still needs to be able to do that. So what we can do, we can create a service that will be injected into component number 5, into component number 6, and into component number 8. So injection is great, but how do we use this injectable service? Number 5 will put something in that service, and number 6 and 8 will subscribe to the data that are placed in this injectable service. So this injectable service will store the state of our application, the state. And whenever state changes, number 6 and number 8 will immediately get the new data. What I will do, let me make it full screen. I will show you this small app. It's small, but it uses different advanced technique. I assume that you already understand the basic of reactive programming, the basics of RxJS, what the observable is, how to push data to an observable, how to subscribe to an observable. But in this video, I'm going to be using a specific object from RxJS, which is called BehaviorSubject. I'll explain you what it is a bit later. For now, I just want to introduce you this app that I will be showing you today. Imagine that we have a top component, right? Something shown in the yellow background, and it has a search component as a child. Also, we have a routing over here, 2 links, eBay and Amazon. At any given time, we show either eBay component or Amazon component in the router outlet by clicking on the link. The user is looking for a product. The user enter what he or she is looking for in the search component right there, enter product. And the eBay component or the Amazon component should receive the data. Since we are using router, I don't know. I'm not sure at any given moment which one is visible, eBay or Amazon, but the data communication should work regardless. Whoever becomes visible, it should immediately receive the data. I'll show you the demo of this app pretty soon. In this example, I'm using injectable service. So the search component will get it injected, the eBay component will get it injected, and the Amazon component will get it injected. But if the search component will be pushing data to the service, eBay or Amazon component will subscribe to the data from that service. That's the plan. Before explaining how this works, let me run this app so you will see how this works first. So I have this project, and actually you can find the sources of this project on GitHub. If you'll go to this area, GitHub, Farada, Angular 2 TypeScript, under the Angular 4 folder, excuse me, you will see an intercomponent project. And what I am using here, I am using the example of the project that is, the application is called Mediator Service Subject. This project is configured to use several apps, multiple applications. How to do that? You would need to go to Angular CLI, angularcli.json, and in there you can configure one or more apps using this apps property. In particular, this app that I will be demoing to you is, I called it Mediator 2. This Mediator 2 will be invoking this main method, main Mediator Service Subject. If you want to see how to read how to configure multiple apps in one project, I have a blog on this subject. Look it up, Angular CLI, multiple apps in the same project. Let's run this app first. So I'll do ngserve. I will build. Oh, sorry. This is wrong. I need to do ngserve and dash app, because I want to build and run a particular app, and I called it Mediator 2 in that Angular CLI JSON. So it'll build me the bundles in memory, and when it's ready, I'll go to localhost 4200, standard procedure, and we'll see how this app works. We are almost there. Yes, the bundles are built. Let me go to the browser. I'll go to this localhost 4200, and we see our beautiful app. Now I'm going to be starting looking for a component, for a product, AAA. As you can see, AAA was sent from search component to eBay component. At this point, we see only eBay component. Now I want, let's say I was trying to find this product on eBay. I couldn't find it, or I didn't like the price, so now I want to do the search on Amazon. But when I will click on the Amazon link, I want to make sure that AAA, my search criteria that I already entered, is passed to Amazon component as well. At this point, this AAA value is already sent to the injectable service. When I click to Amazon, Amazon will get this service injected right away, and it'll get the value, my state technically, which is AAA in this case, from the service. Now let's say I keep working with Amazon. By the way, at this point, router destroyed the eBay component and detached it from the DOM tree. Now I keep working on Amazon. Let's say I'm looking for some other component, BBB, and I want to make sure that AAA BBB is saved as a state if I'll go back to eBay component. Now I go back to eBay component, and eBay component can see AAA BBB. So in this small app, I arranged a loosely coupled communication between the search component, eBay component, and Amazon component. Now let's see how I did this. A quick code review. Actually, let me give you just a little bit of theory. I took these slides from one of my training workshops that I run. First of all, let me quickly tell you what a subject is in RxJS. A subject is both observer and observable. As a matter of fact, you can have multiple observers. So the fact that subject encapsulate observable, which is a data stream, right? It means that you can subscribe to observable from the subject. The fact that it also remembers observers who are interested in receiving the data, we can use the method or the function next to push the data to the observer. At the bottom of the slide, you can see how I can have one or more subscribers to this subject. assuming that you instantiated the subject, right? The variable mySubject. So I can have one or more subscribers, and each subscriber will provide its own observer, of course, and subject maintains the collection of observers internally. So the fact that the subject is an observable allows me to do subscribe, right? I'd have 2 subscriptions in this case. The fact that the subject encapsulates the observer or observers, I can use next. So in this case, if I will say next 1, 2, 3, this 1, 2, 3 will be pushed to as many observers that subscribed at this point. In my case, it would be 2. So that's the basic idea of a subject. But there are different flavors of subjects in RxJS. One of them is behavior subject. Behavior subject. What is so cool about behavior subject? This subject represents a value that changes over time, but it always remember either initial value, if you provide, to push to the subscriber, or the last one that was pushed to whoever subscribed to the subject. Meaning what? Meaning if I have the subscriber number 1 and subscriber number 1 received 1, 2, 3, and sometime later subscriber number 2 subscribes to the same behavior subject, this 1, 2, 3 was stored and it will be pushed to the new subscriber. Obviously, you can have multiple data subscribed by the time a particular subscriber, multiple data pushed to the observable stream, while some subscriber decide to receive them. So whatever the last value was pushed will be given to at the moment of subscription. Some examples of the use of the behavior subject could be login screen. Maybe you can push the status of login if the user is logged in or not. You can remember state, which we will use over here. I will show you how behavior subject can help you with this. In our particular app, I have the following members or players, so to speak. I have a search component which has an input HTML element in there. This is where I was typing AAA or AABBB. The state service is the common ground, so to speak, is a mediator for all these components. And the state service, we push the data AAA to the state service, right? Using behavior subject. We used next on the behavior subject. And the value will be stored inside of the behavior subject. Next, I have 2 components, eBay and Amazon. I don't know at which point any of those will be created, but as soon as the component will be created, I will immediately subscribe to this behavior subject that is sitting inside the state service. And once again, since behavior subject remembers the last value pushed, in my case it would be AAA, right, while I was working with eBay, and then I go to Amazon, AAA will be pushed by behavior subject to Amazon right away. If you look at the code, you can see what I do over there. The class service, state service, is injectable mediator for us, right? What do I do in there? In there, I declare the variable of type behavior subject, and using generics notation from TypeScript, I say that I'm going to be passing strings in there. I'm going to be so string is my item from the observable stream. It could be an object, of course. So I create it and I give an initial value for this behavior subject as an empty string. What else? I also created a setter to set the search criteria. So I store it, in this setter. Whenever my state, search component will be giving me a new value like AAA, what do? I say push it in to the state event. Push to whom? I don't know, whoever subscribed by this time. In my example, it was eBay, by the way. So what happens in the search component? Search component, as I said, it has an input field. I'll show you in the code. it doesn't show. It's not shown on this slide. Input HTML field, so it's a form control. And what do? I subscribe to the value changes of that input field. As soon as I type something in, I will be getting values. But I don't want to get every value. When I enter AAA quickly, I don't want to push A and then AA and then AAA. So I added the operator debounce time, so it'll push the data only if there is an interval of 300 milliseconds in my case between the data push and the between the user typing the data. Next, I subscribe to this value, and what do? I say this dot state. State is a variable that represents the state service. I say assign the search criteria, whatever I have entered in my input field. So I'm invoking a setter. The setter will push the data to the subscriber. Who are the subscribers? At this point, I have only one, eBay. Let's look at the eBay. In the eBay component, I implement on destroy. I'll explain you why. So what do I do in there? I have a constructor, and I inject the same state service into eBay. And immediately, I subscribe to this state event. Right? State event is in the service. I subscribe to the service's state event. So whenever I receive the state event, what do? I take the value that I received from there, I assign it to the property search for. This is search for, and search for is displayed on the UI, which is not shown over here. Important, if you are the one who creates observables or subjects, you are responsible for unsubscribing every subscriber that you might have. What is the right place to do this? It's ng on destroy. It's a lifecycle hook of Angular component, of any Angular component that will be invoked whenever the component goes out of the picture, dies, gets destroyed. Right? So whenever I'm moving using router from one component to the other, ng on destroy will be invoked, and I do unsubscribe. That's pretty much it. Let me go quickly to the source code in the IDE just to illustrate, just to show you that I didn't lie to you, that I implemented exactly that. So the app component is a root component that holds my three components. One of them is called search. The other one, actually under the search, I have a router outlet. And depending on which word I click, eBay or Amazon, in the router outlet I'll show one or the other. Let's look at the state service. I already explained it to you, but let me just confirm that. The state service is this. I import BehaviorSubject and observable from there, and what do I do in there? I have a setter search criteria. The search component will be invoking this setter for me. Whenever the setter is invoked, I do next. I push the data to the observable stream, so whoever is subscribed will get it. And what else I created over here, which I didn't mention in the previous slide, I created a method getState. If on the slide, I showed you that we are subscribing to state event, which is a behavior subject. In a real implementation, I did one extra step. I turned the state event, which is a behavior subject, into observable. Once again, behavior subject has both observable and observer. But I want to limit the user, what the user can do. I want to give him only the observable portion. I want to make sure that eBay or Amazon can only subscribe, and they cannot push to this state event. That's why I cast it into the observable. Now let's take a look at the eBay component. It's also pretty simple, as was shown on the slide. The eBay component gets the service injected, and it invokes getState, which returns an observable, and we subscribe to it. So as soon as we get the data, AAA for example, we assign it to the search for property of the class, and the search for is bound to the UI. That's why we saw AAA on the UI, on the cyan background, right? The Amazon component is pretty much similar, and in here I do the same thing. Injection in the constructor, get observable and subscribe to it, and as soon as the data is in, assign it to search for and display it on the UI. In this case, my Amazon component has a pink background. What I didn't show you yet, search component probably. Did I? Probably not. So the search component is using this form control API. So I have an input field, but I'm saying you're going to be not just a simple input field. You're going to be an Angular form control. So I created a variable search input. I created an instance of this variable to using this form control API from reactive forms in Angular. And I bind this variable search input to this particular input field using the form control directive. So now I have all the goodies that form controls give me. In particular, a form control has a property value changes, so I can subscribe to it as a user types. As I said, I don't want to receive each and every value. I want to receive them only if the user is not typing for at least 300 milliseconds. Do operator just to log the data on the UI, and then I do subscribe. Whenever I want to stress this place is subscribing to the input HTML field, whereas subscriptions in the service, in the eBay component actually, or Amazon component, they are subscribing for the observable to the subject. So whenever I receive the data that user typed in on the UI, what do? I get the values that I received, I assign it, and I do this.state search criteria. This.state search criteria. We go to this.state search criteria. It's a setter. So we assign the value to the setter does the push using next, and this is how the whole thing works. So this is pretty much all that I wanted to show you today. This was my demo. I actually describe all the steps if you want to repeat them yourself. And thank you for watching. This was Yakov Fein with Farata Systems.